Welcome to Art with Mrs. Cap, where we are going on a journey through the world of art and the many histories and cultures that influence it. Whether you're a kid or a kid at heart, wanting to learn more about the art world, this is the podcast for you. So join us as we journey through art with Mrs. Cap. So today we're going to be looking at the terracotta army. This is a very important discovery that happened fairly recently. In 1974, farmers discovered the terracotta army. And it's noteworthy because the terracotta army is from 221 to 206 BC or BCE. And it is actually from the first dynasty of China. So the name of that dynasty is the Qin dynasty. It is Qin, as where we get the word China from. And the first emperor, hopefully I pronounce his name right, is Qin Shi Huang. And he lived from 259 to 210 BC or BCE. So he's noteworthy because he is not only, his name literally means first emperor. So he was not only the first emperor, but he was the founder of China. And he actually unified China. That is what is noteworthy of him, is that he took 7 warring states and brought them into one nation. And that's when he took the name first emperor. And then he left a legacy of centralized and bureaucratic state that ended up being carried on by the succeeding dynasties. And it lasted over 2 millennia. So very, very important person in the history of China. So back to the terracotta army. He was 13 when he became rose to power and became emperor and so forth, when he ascended to the throne. And immediately he began thinking about, afterlife, death. He wanted to conquer death. He conquered so many other things in his life, but death was his focus. He wanted to conquer death. And so in that, we get this wonderful structure, the terracotta army structure mausoleum. And so he would spend the rest of his life overseeing its building, and then building on it would stop around 206 when his dynasty ends and another dynasty takes over. And so there's actually 4 pits or areas in this mausoleum complex, and the 4th one is unfinished, and so it was just left. But the other 3 were finished, and there's a palace. He basically created this whole city complex. But the reason we know it as the terracotta army is because he had them create over 7,000 infantrymen, warriors, horses and chariots, and all of these types of structures and personifications of his army in this structure, because he wanted them to protect him in the afterlife. And so there's over 7,000 that were discovered, in 1974. It's possible there were more that, fell over time just because of age and so forth. But we know there's at least 7,000. He also had mercury that was flowing like rivers, and it represented the rivers, the topography of the rivers and the lakes or oceans and stuff like that. And so he also believed that the mercury would help him live forever, but in reality we know mercury is very toxic. But in his mind, he thought it was this magical substance that would help him, become immortal and live forever. And so his whole focus was trying to live forever and overcome death and have, this kind of subterranean domain that would parallel his worldly existence. And so he had this whole city and palace and complex that was underground, and remained there, is still there today. And it is in Shanxi, China, which is a province in China. The capital city is Xi'an. And that mausoleum that he created is now a museum. So you can actually go visit it and see this complex and everything. So in a sense, when we look at his legacy, I definitely think that in some ways he achieved his desire to live forever, because what he did for China lasted over 2 millennia. And so that's definitely like noteworthy with this. So maybe he didn't physically live forever, like his goal was, but his legacy of a centralized and bureaucratic state lived for millennia. And so that's really, really cool. It's also very cool for us to see, this is a recent discovery, being discovered in the 70s. And so for us to see that other regions of the world were doing things kind of on par or even greater than what we see in ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, and to see, regions in the Far East where that was taking place, that type of innovation and art and culture and all of these things is just really, really cool and very exciting in the world of art history and the world of archaeology. So hopefully you really loved today's episode, as we kind of looked at a different part of the world than we've looked at with previous episodes, and we've kind of seen that legacy and the treasures that were left behind by the ancient Chinese. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Be sure to subscribe and check out more episodes as we travel through the world of art and art history to have a better understanding of our own ties to the culture and history of humanity.